There's a vehicle that makes up a majority of all new car sales here in the States. It weighs up to 3 tons, and it has killed hundreds of adults and children. I'll bet you if you see one of these next time you look out your car window. I'm talking about light-duty trucks, including SUVs. Despite what the industry might present, light-duty trucks are nowhere near as safe as you may believe. Today, we're looking at why SUVs are more dangerous than regular passenger cars and how they're literally killing us. Every vehicle has a gross vehicle weight rating. Basically, it's the maximum weight a vehicle is designed to carry. It includes the net weight of the vehicle with accessories plus the weight of fuel, passengers, and cargo. Here in the U.S., a light-duty truck is a broad term used for vehicles with a gross weight of up to 8,500 pounds and payload capacity of up to 4,000 pounds. This class includes vehicles like pickup trucks, vans, minivans, and SUVs. SUVs are very popular and mainstream now. In fact, it's one of the top-selling car types here in the States, making up almost 50% of U.S. car sales, and it's the largest car segment in the world. But here's the thing. SUVs are among the largest, heaviest vehicles on the road. For example, an average compact car weighs 3,300 pounds, and a typical sedan weighs 4,200 pounds. But the average full-size SUV can weigh between 5,400 and 6,000 pounds. Some of the heaviest SUVs on U.S. roads include the Chevy Tahoe, Ford Expedition, Toyota Land Cruiser and Cadillac Escalade, Toyota Sequoia, Lexus LX, and Chevy Suburban. Many people don't know. If you're a pedestrian walking outside and you get hit by an SUV, you're 3 times more likely to die than if you get hit by a regular passenger car. 3 times. Let's say you're driving a regular passenger car. Well, if your standard car gets hit by an SUV, you're more likely to die in that crash than if a compact car or sedan was to hit you. But the SUV itself isn't all risk-free either. Let's suppose you're behind the wheel of an SUV. Well, in the event of a car crash, you're 2 times as likely to be killed in a rollover than if you were to drive a standard car. If you're wondering why SUVs are even allowed on our road, since they pose a higher risk of fatality, that's a valid question. Here's the thing. Vehicles in the light-duty category often promote their safety features, which is ironic because some of these same safety features are what make them so deadly. Here's what I mean. Fear is a powerful motivator, and that's exactly what car brands did to make SUVs as popular as they are today. Decades ago, Americans as a whole were becoming more concerned about crime and violence. Car makers were quick to capitalize on that fear and vulnerability. Soon we started seeing car ads that appealed to consumers' concern for safety. Ads that promised safety and protection. Take Jeep, for example. In 2001, it put out an ad for the Grand Cherokee where the print said, "Think of it as a 4,000-pound guardian angel." Car ads started conveying the message that the bigger and bulkier the car, the safer you are. And that's how we got where we are today. Think of how ridiculously large the Hummer is, or even the Cadillac Escalade. In America, we think that's normal. But did you know that the Escalade is practically the size of a Sherman tank from World War II? And here's the thing. What car makers weren't telling us was that these SUVs are getting so big that it significantly reduced the driver's visibility. You'd assume you're sitting higher up in an SUV that visibility would be better. And yes, for sure, you might see taller things better, but not smaller things. And that includes small children. In one study, an advocacy group put 17 children in front of an SUV and the driver couldn't see any of them from the driver's seat. But that's not all. Because these behemoth vehicles were so heavy, the chassis became more of a battering ram than a protective cushion. Let's talk about bumper height for a moment. Legally, cars on American roads must have bumpers that are anywhere between 16 to 20 inches above the ground, except for vehicles in the light-duty category. Light-duty trucks have bumpers that can be as high as they want. Imagine this very real scenario of giant SUVs. A giant battering ram with sky-high bumpers slams into a regular car that's standard weight and lower to the ground. Guess what happens? Serious injury and in many cases death. One study found that head-on crashes between a regular passenger car versus an SUV, the odds of death were 7.6 times higher for the driver in the regular car. And in crashes where the car had a better crash test rating than the SUV did, the driver of the regular car did fare somewhat better, but not much. They were still 4.5 times more likely to die than the giant SUV driver. But let's step back for a second. Despite how dangerous SUVs can be, today's SUV make up close to 50% of all new car sales here in the United States. It's the same in Canada. But if you were to rewind several decades back, you wouldn't see any SUVs on the road. So how did we go from 0 to 50% in just a few decades? Believe it or not, it all started with chickens. I'm serious. American chickens, actually. In the 1960s, Europe decided to place a heavy import tax on American chickens. In response, the U.S. levied out our own import taxes, specifically on European light-duty trucks. That added some fuel to the already burning desire of U.S. car makers to start pumping out their own light-duty trucks. But actually, it was fuel efficiency regulations that really helped grow the light-duty truck category. There's a thing called the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standards, or CAFE for short. It requires all car makers in the U.S. to improve the average fuel economy of their fleets. If they don't comply, they get hit with big penalties. So they created a loophole. They were able to get light-duty trucks to be classified differently from passenger cars. So now, instead of building cars that met CAFE standards, they could legally pump out light-duty trucks that avoided the safety and emissions regulations. That's why car makers started promoting and marketing vehicles in the light-duty truck category as the must-buy vehicles. In fact, you step back and look at some of the early SUVs, you can see they basically look like pickup trucks with a longer roof. But now picture this. Let's say you're driving an SUV and you see a family crossing the street. You think they're all done crossing, but what you don't see is the youngest little girl is behind her family still crossing the street. But since your SUV is so tall and has poor visibility down low, you don't see her, and you inadvertently step on the gas. If you think this is a very extreme example, well, unfortunately, that wasn't hypothetical. It happens in real life. But it gets worse. One study found that, over a 10-year period, over 500 American children were run over by SUVs and killed. Even sadder is that in many cases, they were run over by their own parents in their own driveways. And this is not an uncommon thing, even today. You can Google fatal SUV accidents and you can readily see all sorts of incidents. Here's the thing about getting hit by a car. If you, as a pedestrian, were to get hit by an average car, chances are you get thrown on the hood. Now, don't get me wrong, that could seriously injure you, especially your legs. But chances are, if the vehicle was driving slow enough, it won't kill you. That is, unless that vehicle happened to be an SUV. SUVs generally have higher front ends, and that means you'll get hit in the torso or head, not just your legs, depending on your height, of course. Also, pedestrians who get hit by SUVs have a higher chance of hitting their head on the ground or being crushed under the SUV because of its high ground clearance. Now, let's say you're an adult on the taller end of the height spectrum. An SUV with a high bumper might not hit your head as it would a child, but it'd likely smash right into your rib cage and vital organs. When you get hit in that area, it's directly hitting your center of gravity, and that means a higher chance you'll get pushed forward and then run over. Don't get me started on luxury SUVs. Talk about a dumb idea. Think about it. Do luxury SUV drivers really need a big and fancy car in the city? In a city, giant luxury SUVs take up more space on the road and make congestion worse. Also, because such SUVs are so wide, they make it more dangerous for cyclists on the road. And that's assuming if the SUV driver can even see the cyclist. And then there's the issue with parking. Full-size luxury SUVs are difficult to park in the city, tiny parking spaces. In fact, some cities are now starting to create new, bigger parking spaces and lots to accommodate the growing number of SUVs. And this is space that can otherwise be used for better purposes in already cramped cities. If you weren't already surprised by the facts in this video so far, actually there's more. Back in 2012, YouTuber Mark Rober did an experiment where he put plastic animals on the side of the road to see which animals would most likely get hit. Get this. He found that some drivers swerved to intentionally hit the animals. Sad thing is, 89% of those intended animal killers were drivers behind the wheels of an SUV. SUVs are also major contributors to pollution. Remember, SUVs aren't required to meet the same safety and emission standards as regular passenger cars on our roads today. You have to understand that powering a vehicle that's bigger and heavier requires more fuel and creates more emissions. Also, since SUVs are generally higher off the ground, they're less aerodynamic, which means less fuel economy, especially at higher speeds. The NHTSA found that if it were to decrease the weight of SUVs right now, it would reduce the severity of accidents between 0.3% and 1.3%. Another study found that if America's growth in SUV were to be replaced by regular cars the past 2 decades, we would have avoided 1,100 pedestrian deaths. By the way, here's a random side note. There's a group called tire extinguishers that deflates SUV tires. Their motive is to make it impossible to own an SUV in the city. Now, I don't support vandalism or any crime of that matter myself, but I point this out to show how there are SUV haters out there. Now, maybe you feel you need an SUV because you have a large family and you go on large weekly grocery runs. Truth be told, there are many good alternatives out there, like a minivan. It's in the same category, but they're lighter and generally safer than SUVs. Another alternative is a station wagon. The Subaru Outback is one example. Now I know what you're thinking. Wagons are outdated, not cool. From a media perspective, yeah, it's true. It's less fashionable than it was decades ago. But here's the thing, station wagons aren't in the light-duty truck class, but in the passenger car class. They're lighter and lower in height while offering the necessary cabin and cargo space. They also offer better fuel economy compared to SUVs, and they're more affordable than SUVs. But now you tell me, have you or anyone else you know experienced an accident in or with an SUV? Which fact from today's video surprised you the most? Please share by commenting below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.